The world is moving toward an energy transition, but big oil is reluctant to give up fossil fuels. So this is a conversation, obviously, that's been going on for a long time, trying to get away from fossil fuels, big oil, and all this and that. No one makes a solid argument on it. They get called out. There was one I saw that was in Congress that was really good. He was saying, if we get rid of fossil fuels and oil, how are you going to make the plastic glasses or the plastic components that are in your phone and all this and that? And the person had no response for any of that. It's at this point in our life, it's a necessity, right? Fossil fuels are a necessity. Now we can say that over time, maybe we can replace them. And I'm okay with that. Look, I'm very conservative and right leaning for most things, I would think. But with some things, I'll lean to the left, or I'll lean more, moderately there to the middle. I'm okay with getting away from fossil fuels eventually. Completely okay with it. But I don't think you can put the cart ahead of the horse. I think we have to get there eventually. Now, look, what Elon is doing with EVs, and I know the other companies are following him, even though Biden and some of these others don't give Elon as much credit as they do the union backed brands, manufacturers there. But they're doing great work, and it's awesome. But it's not at the point yet that I think we're ready to go, 100% EV or alternative fuels. Fossil fuels are here to stay for a long, long time. If we get away from them eventually, that's fine. But we can't cut it off and expect everyone to move forward. The price of EVs, the price of the upkeep, if the battery needs to be replaced, the charging and other stuff, we're going to get to a little bit more of it, but we're not ready. But let's look at just a couple of things he calls out in this article. And of course, this is from Yahoo Finance. I don't really know about them one way or the other, how far left or right or whatever they are, but it's pretty obvious in reading this article that they're painting big oil as the bad guy. I want to call out a couple of things real quick though. Reading through it, it says countries may be moving toward green energy, but big oil is hardly all in, obviously. On Friday, 2 impact-oriented funds dropped a climate proposal intended to go to ExxonMobil shareholder vote after the Houston-based oil giant filed a lawsuit to remove measure from its proxy ballot. In the complaint, the oil producer said the activist investors, I want to say that's Arjuna Capital, and Follow This were driven by an extreme agenda and the goal of diminishing the company's existing business. Given Exxon's preference to fight a battle in court rather than allow shareholders the freedom of a vote at its annual meeting, we decided to withdraw the claim or the climate proposal. The founder of Follow This said in a statement on Friday, as ESG initiatives and investing styles fall out of favor, energy giants are doubling down on their core business for oil. Last year, ExxonMobil announced a near $60 billion deal to acquire Pioneer Natural Resources that will make it the largest player in U.S. shale. More than a week later, Chevron said it would buy oil explorer and producer Hess in an all-stock agreement valued at $53 billion. I'm almost done here. Big oil companies have posted blockbuster quarters following the start of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2002 as crude oil prices surged. So I'm going to stop right there for a couple of things. One, it mentioned up here ESG. What is ESG? Now, we've heard ESG before. If you're following my channel right now, you've probably listened to some of these other guys that talk about ESG scores real quick. Let's take a look at that. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Environmental, social, and governance refers to a collection of corporate performance evaluation criteria that assesses the robustness of a company's governance mechanisms and its ability to effectively manage its environmental and social impacts. Examples of ESG data include the quantification of a company's carbon emissions, water consumption, or customer privacy breaches. Institutional investors, stock exchanges, and boards increasingly use sustainability and social responsibility disclosure information to explore the relationship between a company's management of ESG risk factors and its business performance. ESG scores have come up a lot in these companies that are pushing the social part more than anything. Not just oil companies or companies creating physical products, so to speak, but some that are doing creative products with Hollywood. You'll hear about ESG scores and social scores and all this and that going up and down if they're not giving the right message across the board. So ESG comes into play a lot with these people. Doesn't really matter to us as much as a society, I don't think, but whoever's pulling these purse strings has a big influence on it. Another thing that was called out in this article was the companies that are trying to get big oil to back down some. One of them is a company called Follow This. Okay. So who is Follow This? Let's take a look right here. This is from their website, and just one little snippet I found. From their Paris climate goals. The entire industry will have to come around. Oil and gas companies will only survive if they become more sustainable, and without them, we will never be able to achieve the Paris climate goals. If that happens, we will be in much more danger. And it is not just our investments that are endangered, but our safety. In the coming years, we will find out whether halting climate change will even be possible. That's an interesting line. But one thing is certain, if we let the oil industry have their way for another 5 years, we don't have a chance. Now, this organization started from someone who was watching the Al Gore documentary on global warming and climate change, and he got all excited. He says, we got to do something. And they went out and started this, and they're trying to shut big oil down. Now, if you'll remember, when Joe Biden became president, one of the first things he did was start eliminating fracking and drilling and all this and that. And the Keystone Pipeline, which a lot of people will say has nothing to do with our oil, but it has something to do with jobs. And my point to this is that he said, we're going to eliminate those jobs. They need to learn coding or something like that. And then the folks were like, okay, cool. Where are these coding jobs? And the response was, well, they don't exist yet. And so we eliminated jobs, told them to go get this other job in this other field, but that other field wasn't ready for them yet. So we put the cart before the horse there. That's what the government does, I think. And that's what these guys are trying to do, trying to get everybody to move away from fossil fuels before we have sustainable alternatives that are just as good or as close to good as what we're getting from fossil fuels as far as mileage, dependability, and everything like that goes. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah. So let's check out what's going on with Teslas and the coal, right? So Teslas are dying in mass amid Midwest freezing temperatures. You've probably seen this one. Let me pop it back up here for you. Boom. So this is an article from, this is Extreme Tech, and they're talking about the Teslas dying. Again, I'm not, crapping on Tesla by any means. Tesla makes a fine automobile. They're just number one. So, in this field, so they're going to have more written about them, more commentary about them. So that's why I'm using them as an example. But yeah, during the winter, they were freezing and the batteries were dying faster. The charges were taking longer. They weren't getting the same amount of mileage that they were supposed to be getting, apparently. Here's another one from the Daily Beast. Why Teslas are dying in Chicago's freezing cold weather. Down here, it talks about it's been a cold week in the U.S. with more than 150 million Americans living under a wind chill warning due to dangerously freezing temperatures. While the weather has resulted in infrastructure, public health, and even voting issues, it's also impacted a more surprising demographic: Tesla owners. Drivers in Chicago have been experiencing long lines at the supercharging stations and in some cases completely dead vehicles as their cars struggle to cope with the frigid weather. Tow trucks have also been called in to deal with Teslas that have occasionally been abandoned by their owners in the street after quickly losing power. I've been here for over 5 hours at this point, and I still have not gotten to charge my car. So we see that we don't have enough stations. We're not ready for it. The cold is clearly impacting them in a way. Now, I will say this. If anyone can fix this in this arena, it's definitely Elon. It's definitely Elon because he's open to change. He's open to figure it out, and he wants to make a better product. Some of these other companies, I think, just want to make a more profitable product. And that's not always beneficial to society, especially if the goal here for so many of them is for us to move away from fossil fuels. And I was reading the comments where people were saying, you know, what if you got stranded on the side of the road? Or what if, you know, there was an accident on these winter roads and you had to sit there in your EV car with your family with the heat on for 2 hours while they tried to get everything unblocked? Well, your car could die, your heat could go out, and you guys could start freezing. So it was so much more. And I know you can run out of gas, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that. But yeah, I just feel like it would be extremely disastrous if we tried to get rid of fossil fuels right now. We're just not ready for it. We're not ready. The article mentions them having record profits. I wonder why. Activist groups like Arjuna Capital and the Follow This are going after them. ESG scores impacting their business in various ways, right? And in the U.S., a president that promised to eliminate fossil fuels. Remember this?
Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated and no more subsidies for either one of those.
I guarantee we're going to end fossil fuel.
No more, no new fracking.
I'd gradually move away from fracking.
And I think it's critically important on day one that we end any fossil fuel leases on public lands.
Well, like what about, say, stopping fracking and stopping pipeline infrastructure
They want to do the same thing I want to do. They want to phase out fossil fuels, and we're going to phase out fossil fuels.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
All right, so that video was put together on a YouTube channel by Swire. Now, I looked on there, and it looks like they maybe haven't uploaded anything in about a year. So I don't know if they're still active on there, but they have some interesting videos. Go check them out. A link to that video is in the description below, and a link to the channel is in the description below as well. But we see that's prior to getting elected, they were talking about doing that. Now, if you listen to Karine Jean-Pierre or any of the other people talking on behalf of Biden, they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything that Trump wasn't doing. They didn't eliminate drilling and stuff. You can even go back to Jen Psaki saying that just wasn't true. Well, we just watched a video that has evidence that he was going to go after fossil fuels. So I can't blame the oil companies, right, for being in defense or in survival mode. Like, hey, yeah, we're going to stock up with money. We're going to buy up some competition. We're going to do what we can to survive. You're going to come at us and try to destroy us. Whereas Trump was like, drill, baby, drill. And they had good profits then too. But our prices at the pump were significantly lower. These are two different ways of doing business. One seemed to benefit us a little bit more than the other one did. Look, I believe more options equal more competitiveness. Okay, if we get something that can compete with fossil fuels, whether it be the EV car or some other kind of car, I don't know if a nuclear powered car is an option. I don't know. Seems a little crazy and a little dangerous, especially with potentials for wrecks and stuff. But I mean, you know, I don't know what all's out there, but if we can find something, I'm all for it, because more competition means not just more competition as far as options go, but the price will be competitive and prices will come down, and that benefits us as well. Because right now, there's only a few companies that do what they do and offer what they offer, and they have a monopoly on it. Fossil fuels being one of them. So if fossil fuels had to compete more directly with EVs or some other alternative fuel, I think at the end of the day, we're going to benefit a lot more. And I'm always down with free market deciding what works and what doesn't work. I don't believe anybody has to push that stuff on you. That no longer makes it a free market, and I'm not a big fan of it.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.